One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, and here with me from Nebraska is director Mathew Kister.
Hello.
And also in the room we have Mr. Steve Eaton.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to Inside Movies Galore, gentlemen, and thank you for taking your time to come on with me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
I'm ready for the hard-hitting questions.
So, Matt, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the independent film industry, and we'll go from there.
Oh boy, I'm not, as Steve can attest, I'm not a very interesting person. Back in 1999, I had made this really bad little short film with some of my high school friends for a high school art project, and had sort of wanted to get into movies. And in 2005, we had that opportunity, and basically what had happened was our first film, The Grand Horror, we just decided, let's make a feature-length film because a friend of ours showed us around this sort of old dilapidated theater that he sort of now had access to, and we were like, hey, let's make a movie here. And so we decided to make a feature, having no real experience whatsoever. And Steve was actually a part of that original film as well, because I had a friend and he was dating her at the time. And I think, Steve, what were you gonna do? You were just gonna like help, and then I was like, great, you're gonna act now or something.
Yeah, this is the way it worked. You had sent out an email basically to like everyone in the area that you knew, like, hey, I'm doing a movie. If there's anything you want to do to pitch in, let me know. And I said, I'm willing to help out behind the scenes. And your response was, I've already written you a part.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. And so we shot our first film over the span, I want to say like 10 weekends in the summer of...
It's supposed to be 3.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 3. And basically we lived at this theater every weekend for 10 weeks straight. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And we've been rolling along ever since. This is our 15th year anniversary at Dead Lantern Pictures since that original 2005 film. So it's crazy. We're graybeards now.
So, now, where did you film your first feature that you were talking about? You called it The Grand Horror?
Yes, we filmed it. It's called The Grand Horror because we shot it at a movie theater called The Grand Theater, and I'm terrible with names. And so, like, The Grand Horror in Grand Island, Nebraska. So
where all of the actors had characters that used their first name. So I, Steve, played Steve.
Okay.
Yes,
and so on and so on.
Yeah, and Steve has actually been in every Dead Lantern feature. So yeah, I think he might be the only one that's been in every.
Going over to you, Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you met Mr. Kister?
Well, like you said, I was dating someone that Matt and his friends group were friends with at the time. I don't really know like how we ended up, I don't know, bonding or whatever you want to call it, because I did not expect to act like ever. I knew through the grapevine that Matt had this desire to make films, and I was kind of peripherally interested in it.
Well, you were interested in writing, if I remember correctly. Like,
yeah,
I
used to like writing until it became like more of a job than something I did for fun. So I dropped that real quick. But I stuck around acting, and I'm trying to, like, I've kind of gotten away from acting, and I'm pitching in more behind the scenes now, which is weird because that was my idea up front, which clearly didn't work out.
Very true.
Okay.
Very true.
What was your experience like acting in The Grand Horror with some of the other actors and actresses?
So acting it's like simultaneously super, super fun and also like draining and irritating. Like when I think back on my life about like the best times and the worst times, it's always like our movies are involved in some way, shape, or form. So I remember, being told, hey, we're going to make this movie. We're gonna do it in 3 weekends, and then 3.5 months later, we're wrapping up.
I'm bad with
That
deadlines.
and that's just kind of how it goes. Like it is a blast, but at the same time, once you're done making a movie, you want to just get away from it for a little while, rest, recover, and then a couple years later,
Yeah.
we chug out another one.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing about all of that, in my opinion, is like for the grand horror, none of us had any idea what we were doing. I mean, the entire film essentially became an ad lib film. No one really followed the script at all. I remember like we were doing a clapboard for like 20 minutes, and we're like, this sucks. We've never done it since. We don't use clapboards. It was just annoying. And it's like you look back on those films, and the Grand Horror, Outpost Doom, these films are up on our YouTube channel if anyone's ever interested to go back and look at where we started from. I'm still
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, they're bad movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're bad movies. I'm very proud of them that we were able to get the stuff done. But I look at those old films compared to like the stuff we do now, and I was like, wow. I mean, it's night and day. It's absolute night and day. And at least the one thing that we've gotten out of filmmaking, I feel like we have upped our game. Like we've all gotten better at our craft, even if it's a little bit better. So
yeah, we have movies now that I feel like we are proud of, and I think prior to we started in 2005, and I know prior to 2015, I don't know that we could have said that. But the last few years, I think, have been good to our movies.
It's interesting to hear what kind of cameras you started out with in the very beginning. What kind of camera was you?
A Walmart special.
Yeah. So the funny story about our cameras, when we decided to shoot a feature-length film, our good friend DJ Chardon, who's sort of like the sound guy on all of our stuff, he actually had a good job at the time, a high-paying job. So we were like, buy us all these fancy cameras and things that we think we're going to need. So he actually did an eBay bid for like a Canon G2, I think it was, way back in the day, and it ended up being a scam, and he lost like $2,000. And so it was like the week before we were supposed to film, because we had everything all set up, ready to go, and DJ's like, I didn't get the camera, and I don't know what we're going to do. So we were like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Walmart here in Grand Island, and we're going to get the cheapest mini DV camera we can possibly get, and then when we're done filming, we're going to return it and get our money back for it, which is exactly what we did. And I don't remember what that original mini DV camera was, whatever the cheapest one it was at Walmart in 2005.
Okay. Now, how have you gone about and gotten your actors? Did you just use a bunch of friends at first, or did you actually have to go to a casting place and actually get some actors?
No, I think 2011, maybe 2012 was the first time we ever held an audition.
Yeah, the Eyes of Isabel was the first time we actually went outside of our group of friends. Grand Horror and Outpost Doom was just friends.
We just conscripted people that we knew.
Alrighty, and how was the film's reception when it came out?
Well, the Grand Horror was sort of interesting because when we screened it I think in 2006 at the Grand Theater, and I remember it was actually sold out. The entire theater was sold out, and I'm one of those people, I cannot be in the movie theater when my films are playing because it just freaks me out. I'm always very sort of concerned about what people's reactions are going to be. Mm-hmm. And then recently I went and was going through a bunch of old hard drives, and I saw like a behind the scenes sort of the premiere of the Grand Horror that I found. I stuck it up on our YouTube channel, and the response was overwhelming. Not because it was a good movie, I don't think, but just because it was fun, and people sort of just got a kick out of how goofy and and just the fact that we were able to complete it, which was one of the big things in our minds, which kept us going, because we were like, wow, okay, this actually turned out pretty well. We did a small DVD run, if I remember, Steve. I don't even know if we took that to conventions. I think we just
I think at some point we had a few that we may have just given away, like with Outpost Doom maybe, but it wasn't many.
Yeah, but we made DVDs for our friends and family and whatnot, and we had a very positive experience on the Grand Horror, all told, and so that's what kind of led us into Outpost Doom.
Okay, why don't you tell me a little bit about Outpost Doom, and what inspired you to make Outpost?
Well, I really like 1930s Universal horror, 1940s Val Lewton RKO. That's kind of like the horror that I'm actually into more than like gore and blood and guts and stuff like that. And so, if I remember correctly, Steven, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were in my grandmother's basement, sort of hammering out
It's 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, 4th of July weekend, hammering out this idea of what we could do, this homage to these old movie monster sort of things. And we had a barn location, and we're like, the whole movie's got to be in a barn. And so yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it was supposed to be, an homage to old school monster movies.
We also kind of had like a I don't know what the proper, it's not an homage, but we really liked the idea of The Thing, and one of the people in this group of characters is a monster, but you don't know who it is, so that kind of also influenced the story that we ultimately came up with. We wanted it to be a secret who the monster was.
Yeah, like a murder mystery with monsters.
Okay. Now, where did you did you use some of the same group of people as actors for Outpost Doom?
Yeah, a recycled Steve, a recycled Ryan. Basically, yeah. Again, this is at a point in time when we still hadn't really wanted to venture outside of our comfort zone, which was just making a movie with friends. It would take the eyes of Isabel that would get us to venture out further. And so, yeah, for Outpost Doom, it was still all of our close friends who lived in the Aurora / Grand Island area who would be willing to hang out in a barn in the summer in hot, humid Nebraska overnights for multiple weekends. And so that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, it was not uncommon to start filming, Saturday morning about 8, 9, 10 a.m. and finish up like the following sunrise the next day.
Yeah.
Super good times is what I'm trying to say.
Hello, Megan. Can you hear us?
Do we have Megan? I heard Benito.
I heard a fourth one in the call.
I heard a voice. She's messaging me. Go ahead and keep asking your questions.
Megan, are you here?
Maybe.
She said, "There you are. Hi, Megan."
Hello, Miss Garcia. Welcome to Inside Movies Galore.
There we go. Maybe.
And I thought I was bad with technology.
We're just gonna edit all this out. It's fine.
It's okay. It's okay. At this moment, if you can talk, Miss Garcia, how about you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Dead Lantern folks?
So, I guess my involvement with Dead Lanterns started back on a movie set of it was shot in Lincoln, and it was for a movie called Remission. I believe it was Remission. And,
that's where we first met you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just been slowly growing, and ever.
See how enthusiastic she is? She's like, "Oh, it's slowly growing and it won't stop." It's like a tumor. We're like a tumor.
It's a wonderful
tumor. When you got the role of Sophia, what did you think? How did you feel?
I'm actually really excited about Sabia. She was really easy to play because all I had to do was kind of, tilt my acting towards my grumpier side, and I'm not 100% bubbly, and so that was really fun.
Awesome. Now, are you originally from Nebraska like these boys?
I am.
Okay, cool. Now, how did you? What kinds of things did you have to do as an actress during, shall I say, the first anthology, Shivers Down Your Spine?
Let's see. For me, the biggest thing with acting is just remembering lines. Like, it's not so much being in front of camera and being, in front of people. I want to, do my best to not only impress the audience, but, do my best to bring forth a character that the director and everyone else has put together for me. And I want to do my best to convey that. And I mean, I know how much of a pain in the ass it can be, on set. So I try and do that as well as possible so everything can go smoothly instead of having to take 100 different takes of the same thing over and over.
Okay.
And
But you
Matt
do
will
that
make
anyway.
you take 100 different takes.
Going back to you, Steve. With your character as Steve in the Grand Horror, and then your character in Outpost Doom, what are some of the things that you can take as an actor from either one of those two productions?
Absolutely nothing, because those movies are garbage. But no, it was. I don't know that there was anything that I could take and use from either of those movies. Kind of the best I'll say is, even though that they maybe didn't turn out the greatest, the experiences were good enough to make me want to keep coming back for more until we got to the point that we could create something that we were actually happy with.
I would say there's actually been quite the evolution in Steve's acting, from the Grand Horror to Outpost Doom to the Eyes of Isabel, because you were like the literal star of the Eyes of Isabel, and then getting into Shivers and whatnot. Because a lot of that early stuff, you play the very sort of sarcastic, cynical. I mean, you play yourself in pretty much all these movies, and it's great. Like, once you learned how to just play yourself, you're fine, Steve.
Well, good. I'm glad that you keep writing me roles where I get to be a jackass.
Yes. I mean, write what you know.
Well, this is where I'll talk at you about the Eyes of Isabel as a production.
Do we have to go here?
Well,
Hard-hitting questions. Hit me with it. What's your question?
Well, how did you come up with the idea for the original feature? I know you're not entirely too keen on that feature. So.
Yeah, well,
it came up over our conversations while playing Left 4 Dead. That's all I remember about it.
Yeah, so this goes back to Outpost Doom. So when I had finished Outpost Doom, we decided to actually take that one to horror movie conventions. So we printed up DVDs and we went around to various places. I think we went to Flashback Weekend and Texas Frightmare, I think, a number of places. And when we would sell out our booth, we would get two types of people: young people who would buy it and old people who would buy it. Old people would come back and say, we loved it. They loved it because it was such an homage. They saw all the homages to old classic monster movies and stuff that I'd put in there. I was very happy with that. Young people were like, there's no boobs and there's no blood. And horror is a young person genre. And so the overwhelming response was, we don't like it because it's too slow. It's too boring. Like, where's all the boobs? Where's all the blood? And I got really sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say hurt was the sense I felt, but I just got very bitter about that kind of thing. And so I was like, well, fine, I'm going to make a movie that's going to have as much blood and boobs and everything as possible. And I'm going to give the people what they want. And as I was making The Eyes of Isabel, which was like a 4-year process, Megan was one of the Isabels. I mean, Megan's like you're in half that movie, I think. And we put Megan through hell on that movie. I still feel bad about that. But what ended up happening with that is I realized that movie came from a bad place. Like I never should have made that movie in terms of, making a bloody, gory slasher. Because that's not what I'm really into. I don't really like that stuff all that much. And ultimately, like, why I hate the movie so much, it's not because of the experiences on it. I made lifelong friends with people on this movie, and I wouldn't trade those experiences for the world.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, as a director, I feel like I failed miserably, like all of my friends. I failed them all.
You were trying to cater to the masses at the time. And...
Well, it's not that's not the reason why I failed my friends. I'm a big believer in sort of putting people in the best position possible to succeed, right? As the director, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And anytime I get very sort of freaked out when I'm editing a movie or finishing a movie, because I'm genuinely I don't care if people think the movie sucks, but I don't want people to look at my friends and laugh and say, oh, they suck, or they were awful, they were terrible, look how stupid this is, and whatnot, because that's what will really affect me. And I feel with like The Eyes of Isabel, I didn't do what I needed to do to ensure that didn't happen. And so when I look at the finished product, I'm like, this is not an accurate representation or reflection of the talents that my friends have. And so to me, it was a film that I had to compromise on it left and right. There's literally a scene in this movie where a friend of ours, before he went on a diet, he was 250 whatever. He's like, I'm gonna go check it out, guys, and he walks out the front door. Well, then we had to film his death scene 3 years later, and he had lost a ton of weight, so now he's like 150. So it's like, you look at that kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, it just drives me crazy. And and so that's why I really despise that. Now my friends tell me it's not as bad as I think it is, but to me it's just a very personal, bitter film.
I hear you. Now, where did you happen to film that particular film in Nebraska?
All over. We shot some in Aurora, Nebraska. We shot a bunch of stuff with Megan up in Omaha, Nebraska. We shot some in Lincoln. I mean, it was crazy. We shot all over the place.
Megan, how was your experience with that film? Was it as bad as he's? But not.
My experience on the set of Isabel was cold, uncomfortable, and during the wee hours of the late night and into the early morning. But looking back on it, it sucked. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, Megan, tell the story about how we were filming the prologue with that bar in your mouth.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that was the bad part of the prologue, in my opinion. Only because it must have been I swear it was the last thing that we were filming, just because of all the blood and everything that was involved. And the idea is that, she gets hung up on this clothing line.
Yeah.
She gets impaled through the back of the head.
Yeah. And it's this giant metal T. So I have to stand on top of a cooler and have this part of one on the back of my head. And then I have to hold the front piece in my mouth. Now, my head is completely wrapped in gauze. I can't really talk.
It's like 30 degrees outside.
Here, I have to wedge this piece into all this fabric, into my mouth, holding it there. It's 30 degrees. I'm wearing a nightgown and a cardigan, having to balance and act and hear Matt call action and wait for cues and so tired. So tired.
I still feel bad about that. I still feel really bad.
And then somehow we got her to come back for future films.
Yeah, but hey, the prologue is on our YouTube channel because we actually thought the prologue turned out really well. That was the one part of Isabel that I thought actually turned out pretty cool, and so you can actually see that. We turned it into a short film called "The Night She Came Back." That's on our YouTube channel. So anyone who's curious about what a little bit of Isabel would look like, you can check out the prologue.
Okay. Going on to Shivers Down Your Spine, which is kind of where I kind of met up with you online. With this film. Now, did you? When did you? How should I say this? Should I start with Deadbolt?
Well, let's take a couple steps back. So while we were filming The Eyes of Isabel, we had decided Steve and I would go play basketball on a basketball court. We would come up with ideas for like a web series because we were originally going to do a bunch of short films for deadlantern.com, and while like on the off weekends of filming Isabel, we would shoot these little short films. And of course, I'm terrible with deadlines. We could not hit our one film a month, thing that we were going to do. So all of these short films started, stacking up. And basically how Shivers Down Your Spine came about, it was never intended to be an anthology. It was supposed to just be, the monthly web series. And then once we decided we're not going to do that, we had to come up with a wraparound story. And that's sort of how we brought Megan in to, be the wraparound genie and connect all of them. And so that's how Shivers Down Your Spine originally came about. And I do remember, Steve, you telling me on that basketball court that Shivers Down Your Spine was a stupid name, but I love it. So
it is a stupid name.
Not
I love you, Steve.
Because there was a book series called Shivers back in the day. It kind of paralleled. You could buy it at Big Lots, and you could, and they were similar to like Goosebumps type of thing. So
yeah, and it's kind of so it's like, and I think Deadbolt, if I remember correctly, Steve, was Deadbolt the very first one we ever shot for that? Or it could have been the one of the Convention Girl, maybe.
It was Deadbolt or Convention Girl 1, because those are the two earliest for sure. But I couldn't tell you which is which. I think our goal in doing the shorts originally was after Isabel, like we were burnt out to an incredible degree. We did not want to make another feature length, but we also just didn't want to be idle for so long. And so we had this idea, let's just do like a little baby movie every so often to keep our skills, air quotes, fresh. And it ultimately turned into Shivers.
Yep, okay. That's true.
And once you finally got it edited, what did you think? What did you guys think of it as a whole?
Steve, you want to start with that?
I think we were all very happy with it, and the good part of an anthology is only parts of it have to be successful, and it can still end up being a good movie. So we really milked that.
Yeah.
Shivers, I think, is the first time where we when did that release? Like 2015, I think, something like that. So basically, like 10 years into our filmmaking, again, air quotes, careers. I think Shivers was the first movie where we were like, maybe we don't suck.
Yeah, and what was funny about Shivers is, basically we premiered Isabel and Shivers the same year, essentially. I mean, both those movies finished in totality that same year in 2015. I think we both showed them at the Prairie Lights Film Festival, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing about it was I retired because I was so burned out of editing all of these movies and because we essentially over the course of 4 years shot 2 feature-length films and tried to put them all together. And I remember thinking I was very, very impressed with Shivers Down Your Spine, and I felt that was the closest we had ever attained to actually doing something good. And then we actually were confident enough to send that one out to reviewers. And the reviewers started saying, this is actually pretty good. And we're like, okay, we didn't make something total shit. So now I'm going to retire on a high note. that was the plan.
No, from what I understand, the wraparound, you just kind of interweaved it with these other short films.
Yeah, the wraparound was shot last. Yeah.
How was it trying to figure out the order that you would put them in?
That's a good question. So Chills Down Your Spine's wraparound's completely different. That was shot in a completely different way. But with Shivers, I just kind of placed them in the order I thought would be best. And I wanted to make sure with the wraparound that Steve and Megan were making fun of the crappy parts of all of these things. So even if it didn't work perfectly in a natural flow, people, because ultimately, what do people want, right? If people watch a movie and they laugh and they're having fun with it, even if it's a bad movie, they're going to come out of it with they've had entertainment, right? It's an enjoyable experience for them, and so that was the idea behind the wraparound. I really liked the way that Megan and Steve played off one another, which I think continuing it into Chills Down Your Spine, like the chemistry between those two is just perfect. It's just fantastic. But there was no real sort of plan as to, okay, I'm going to put this here and this here and this here. I just kind of like, well, this one might be kind of crappy. Let's put that one first. This one might be the best, so let's put this one last, so to speak. So that's kind of how that rolled.
Steve, what did you think about your character, Jeff?
Well, Jeff was never supposed to be my character. Going back to what we talked about, way at the beginning, when Matt likes to have people basically use their own names for movies, our friend Jeff was supposed to be Jeff. So
and his wife wouldn't let him. His wife found out Megan was going to be topless, and she's like, "Nope."
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but I got brought in very last minute. So because of that, Shivers Down Your Spine was actually the first time I actually attempted to learn lines. So only 10 years after the fact. But no, it was super fun. Jeff ended up, being another character that was just this cynical, sarcastic jackass. So I felt I fit right into it.
Awesome. Now, looking back at the first one compared to the newest anthology, how do you think that your character has done? I mean, do you like the transition from the first one to the second one?
I do. I thought it was a cool. Arc might not be the right word, but in Shivers Down Your Spine, like I'm very like nonchalant. I don't take any of this seriously. Like I feel like I'm kind of leading Megan's character to tell me all. I mean, I wished for it. She's the genie. She had to do what I said. I was kind of in charge during all of this, and I thought in Chills, like we got to flip that. Now I'm the desperate one seeking out her, and so all of the power, air quotes, has gone to the two Megans in Chills.
Yeah, you've fallen madly in love, and you must find her.
Yes, went through so many microwave pizzas.
Well, I think that's one of the things I like about Shivers is that the first wish that you actually end up wishing is in fact for her to make you a frozen pizza or whatnot, wasn't it?
The first wish is for her to put her some damn clothes on.
Well, there we go.
That was the first wish.
But one of them ended up being a freebie. I don't remember.
That was the freebie. That was the freebie. because, and you know how much shit we got from reviewers as well, because like Megan pops out and then that was always going to be the joke, right? Because and so like so many reviewers are like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Why would he wish for something like that? Megan, what do you remember from shooting that wraparound?
Again, being very tired and very grumpy.
Which probably helped with your character, especially when you ended up being two different characters.
Matt likes to get these really method actresses on his set.
Very true. Yes. I'm gonna next time we make a movie, it's gonna be at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, so that Megan will be nice and refreshed. Because we always end up shooting with you at like 10 o'clock at night and longer.
Yeah.
That always seems to be the case.
What was it like from going to the grumpy genie to the super chipper, hyper on Ritalin genie?
Going from having to be Sabia to Maktuna, one, it was really fun because they're two completely different characters that I really resonate with. Because, women, you have your nice and sweet and fun and bubbly dinky side. And then on the other hand, it's like, okay, very super, all right, strict. This is how it is. Not, feeding into any bullshit. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun because I got to express that side of me versus just like, oh, grr, I'm so angry and I'm a complete bitch all the time.
Awesome. Now, were there any locations that you enjoyed while acting in Dead Lantern Pictures?
Let's see. I would have to say Dead Lantern Pictures. I'd have to say the farm location that we shot Isabel was probably my favorite. Although a lot of the other locations were either my house or my friend's house. So I'd have to go with the barn location because it was...
I thought you were going to say your apartment so you could immediately go to sleep after we're done filming.
I forgot. Okay. I was thinking, like, which one was the nicest? Like, the most beautiful. I didn't think about that aspect. The beautiful location would have been the barn, and most convenient would have been where I lived because I got to go to bed.
So, ultimately, how long were each actually, I don't really. Do we really want to get into how many wraparounds there are?
Oh yeah. There's two. I mean, that's part of the selling part of the movie. There's two wraparound stories. I had never seen that in a horror anthology ever. And so one of the things was when we were like, Chills Down Your Spine was designed very different from Shivers. Obviously, Shivers was never intended to be a horror anthology. We just manufactured it after the fact. But with Chills Down Your Spine, our good friend Mark Popejoy somehow convinced me, pulled me out of retirement. And, I was like, okay, well, if we're gonna do this, it's gonna be much bigger. We're gonna go much, much grander than Shivers Down Your Spine. I have all these crazy ideas. I told Mark, I was like, you're just gonna let my creative side go wild. You're gonna have to deal with it. And he said, sure, do it. And so, the wraparound stories for Chills were always intended to be two separate ones. Again, because I'd never seen that done before. I had no idea, even up to the point where we were going to, because we had edited all of the short films, and then it was to the point where, okay, well, now we gotta piece this jigsaw puzzle together to see how it all. I had no idea until I actually put it together whether or not it would work. I had no clue. I didn't even tell Mark, our producer, whether or not I didn't have confidence that it was going to work. Actually, I was like, oh boy, now the pressure's on. How am I actually going to piece this whole thing together? And luckily, it all sort of came out well. But The wraparound story is one of them is based on Homer's The Odyssey. It's a loose adaptation of that, and the other wraparound is supposed to be a parody of the quote unquote torture porn sort of stuff, which I think is just some of the worst horror films out there. And so I wanted to just do a goofy sort of, here's this horrible, disgusting killer who's got this girl chained up, but he's in the most immaculately clean garage you've ever seen, and Sabia's making fun of him, and it's just, he's a goofball. People are going to laugh when they see him, and so and then of course they come together for our epic conclusion.
Okay. And now, when did you release the you started releasing it recently to reviewers, so how has its reception been so far?
Well, I mean, way better than I ever anticipated. People seem to be really enjoying it. We haven't had a bad review yet. Knock on wood. I hear another one's dropping tomorrow, so I guess we'll see. As of today, no bad reviews. But I think that's a testament to all of the actors that are on this. Megan and Steve, they hold this whole film together, with these wraparound stories. And Megan, of course, doing double duty, two completely different characters. I know, one of the cool things about it was, some reviewers have already said they didn't even realize she was playing two different characters until they saw the end credits, which is something I think is very, very cool, because that's just shows how great of a job she did, that people can't even tell the difference. But even all this,
I didn't either, to be honest, until I saw the IMDb credits. I was like, oh, okay.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. And so, the fact that, Megan is such a talented actress and she can pull that off, and it really, really makes it work. But with Chills, we wanted to do stuff we'd never done before, Western, animated movies, murder mysteries, all kinds of crazy stuff. And luckily, it seems like the reception is all of them came out pretty good, and people seem to like them. So
now, from what I understand, you're going to make this into a trilogy of a mentality.
That's what I say. Yeah. It's the idea is there for. So when Shivers was being made, when we had eventually decided to turn it into an anthology, I had sort of already been coming up with ideas of what a sequel would look like, and just sort of my creative mind, that's how I always think. So I'm always like, I have a bunch of scripts that I would love to do, and so Shivers ends in a specific way, Chills ends in a specific way, and Tingles Down Your Spine would be what happens. How does the storyline with Sabia, Moctuna, and Jeff, how does it resolve itself? And it involves a lot of crazy stuff. More genies, more everything. We've got a little bit of homage to a show that Steve likes quite a bit called Sliders. I won't go into too much of what the story will be.
Sliders is a great show.
But it does sort of, it brings back a lot of the characters that you've seen throughout the 15 years of Dead Lantern Pictures, and sort of the mythology that we've set up in all of our films, because all of our films are connected, every single one of them. And so if you've watched all of them, like if you've seen the Grand Horror,
Sorry.
The Eyes of Visible, yeah, right. You'll notice there's a mythology going around, but Tingles Down Your Spine is how that mythology resolves itself, and how the world goes back to normal, so to speak. So
okay. Now, from what I understand, you have another film that you're still editing called Robot 7, or Return of Robot.
Return of Robot 7. No, Return of the Robo-Mummy from Outer Space Part 7.
There we go.
That's a feature-length film that we shot over the past few years. Again, shooting two features simultaneously with Chills Down Your Spine. I don't know what's wrong with us, but that we hope that that'll be out next year at some point. But right now, I'm just on a long sabbatical. I don't want to do movie stuff for a while, because you always get burned out after you're done. I'm happy that well, hopefully that people will get to see this movie, because most people don't get to see our movies, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that this movie gets out there and people can appreciate this one. And then once everybody has relaxed and chilled out, I'll worm tongue Steve into coming back, and I'll convince Megan to do some crazy stuff, and we'll go from there.
If there's anything that any of you can take from working on the films that you have, what would you take from it?
Steve?
I mean, I retired, so my message was get out, stop, don't do this.
Yeah. I mean, I've felt that way multiple times. Yeah. Megan, what can you take from working on these crazy projects?
I love my friends very, very, very much.
Yeah, and I will echo, what Megan said there. We've always said here at Dead Lantern Pictures that we do this for the friendships that we make. It's not to make zillions of dollars. It's not to make any money. I've never made a dime from any of this for 15 years. I mean, that's the truth. And but the memories that you create, the people that you meet, like The Eyes of Isabel, I give that movie a lot of shit. But without that movie, Chills wouldn't exist. Shivers wouldn't exist. We probably never would have met Megan. We never would have met Benito. We never would have met any of these people because when I was younger, I was very sort of introverted in a way where I didn't like to sort of put myself out there. I was very comfortable staying with just a close group of friends and making these sort of dopey movies and having a fun hobby. And then, once we realized, well, let's try to make something bigger and better with The Eyes of Isabel. We failed miserably, but we tried. But it caused us to sort of have to reach out to, Omaha actors, like real actors, like actual people that we didn't know that we would have to put our faith and trust in would show up. Some of them turned out to be evil effects artists who took our money. Others turned out to be amazing effects artists who we've become great friends with. And so without that experience of making that movie, all of this success that we're all having now with people loving, Shivers and Chills Down Your Spine never would have happened. So, it's about the relationships you make. It's about the memories that you create when you're making the movie, the good ones, the bad ones, because even the bad ones, we'll get together on occasion and we'll laugh about it. Remember that time, Steve, when I made you put that werebear mask on?
I do indeed.
Isn't that a great memory? We can have fun about that now, right?
Yeah,
right.
Let's go with that.
So yeah, friendships. That's what we take away most.
So if there was a tingle down your spine, Steve, even though you're in retirement, would you return to your character that you had been playing?
No. No, we've already talked about, without spoiling anything, we've already talked about how to write my character out. If I continue to make movies, it will be behind the camera.
Now, I fully am convinced in my ability to convince people to do things. So I have not given up that Steve will eventually rejoin Tingles as the Jeff character. Should we ever do it? I have not given up that dream yet.
Now, from what I understand, you can actually pre-order the Blu-ray to Chills Down Your Spine, correct?
Kinda, sorta, yeah. If you send us an email at deadlanternpictures@gmail.com, we'll put you on the email list, and we'll fire it out whenever the Blu-rays are done. Now, the thing about Chills Down Your Spine is I have nothing to do with putting this movie out. This is our producer, Mark Popejoy, who sort of basically funded this entire venture. Most Dead Lantern stuff, I think all of Dead Lantern stuff pretty much, up until this film, was funded by us, like Steve, DJ, and myself, pretty much. But with this one of the stipulations I told Mark is like, if we're coming out of retirement, you're handling all this because it's just so much to deal with. It's so much to make the movie, promote the movie, print the Blu-rays, DVDs, go to conventions, do all of that stuff. And so whenever he announces the Blu-rays are available, that's when I'll send an email out to people and say, hey, they're ready. And whenever the films go up on Amazon, whenever he tells me it's a go, we will tell everybody. So, yeah, kind of a pre-order. You can email us and we'll let you know when it's available.
Now, is there anything else that any of you would like to say about any productions that you guys have been part of at this moment?
I don't think so. I just want to thanks again to the cast and crew. Chill down your spine. I mean, they were great.
I'd ask. I mean, this is your chance to talk. So.
Yeah. If people are interested in our stuff, they can go to deadlantern.com. All of our social media links are at the top of the website, and we post all of the new information there. So if people want to learn more about our stuff, they can go to our YouTube channel via our website if they want to see some of our old stuff. There's a lot of stuff with Megan on there. Like Megan did a short called Beneath the Compound. That was the first film we actually worked with her on. And again, she was miserable and cold and angry on that one. And you can see that film on our YouTube channel.
It's a theme.
Yeah.
Angry and miserable, huh?
Pretty much.
Right? And cold. Don't forget cold.
I guess I just have this weird thing against my friends. I just want to see them suffer or something. I don't know.
Alrighty. Well, I appreciate all of you being able to take your time and come on and speak with me. So thank you. And hopefully, I wish all of you good luck wherever, whatever you guys are doing. And hopefully, maybe Steve, you can come back and reprise a role. I kind of like your sarcasticness.
That sucks.
Everybody likes Steve. Steve, you can't let the people down. You need to
watch me.
Alrighty. Everyone say good night to the audience, and we'll wrap this up.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome.